The Indie Council is in session. Welcome, everybody. This is a place for the leading voices from across the industry to gather to talk news, titles, and everything indie. I'm your Master of Ceremonies, Jill Grote, the Indie Informer, and today, joining the council, we have Metrovania Defender, Janet Garcia,
Hello.
and a wealth of experience, Jenny Wyndham.
Hello.
Is that a subtle hint to something that I found that made me chuckle and I'm going to insert later in the show? Perhaps. Perhaps. But for now, let's head over to Indie News. And the big indie news is that Steam Next Fest is next week. And I've been hearing about this for weeks now. Like, I sort of love it. I sort of love that a lot of demos are going up early. A lot of people are getting ahead of the actual event itself so that you have this, like, vast amount of demos you can actually get through a little bit more of. My community decided to do a Steam Next Fest demo sort of early sneak peek of the ones that are already up for last week. So that was my whole stream last Friday. And I just wanted to talk about a couple of demos that y'all either have your eye on or have played already so that people going into next week can be prepared to have them get downloaded or to have them on their list so that they can check them out. And it's going to be a lot of things, I think, for me. But I have narrowed this down so that we didn't go over to the top 3 that we either played or are looking forward to, so that we didn't have this huge list. So the first thing I want to talk about, I'll just point out this little guy here. It is the year of the horse, everyone. And it's super special because that's my year.
Mm-hmm.
So welcome to my year.
Oh,
I
yeah.
am excited, except I'm a metal horse and it's a fire horse year, but that's fine. That's fire, metal, it all works out. So for yesterday, I played Horses of Hoofprint Bay. And y'all, I don't know if you know about this game because this game was not on my radar until yesterday, but it popped up with a vengeance. And I checked this out and I was shocked and pleasantly surprised to find that the publisher is the Main Quest, our favorite horse-focused gaming website. Everyone go check that out. So they're publishing a game, and I jumped into it, and it is charming. Did I make it a little bit darker than it should have been in my stream? Yeah, I did. My feedback, as my community reiterated, was more confetti and more blood. So, a lot of
I'm
fun.
scared. Is the horse okay?
No, the horse needed the blood. The horse is vampiric in nature. So, it's good. No one panic. um that's not real. That's my headcanon. In the real game, in the game as presented by the developers, um Horses of Hoofprint Bay is a story of it's basically like horse management life sim, horse ranching sim, where you have inherited a piece of land, you're going to build it up to be the best horse ranch possible. There is a lot to do already. I played for, I want to say, nearly 2 hours or something like that, and it's still got plenty of stuff to do. You have to like get your horse, you have to like make sure you're brushing it every day, you have to build up every part of the land, you have to make sure that once you build stuff, you're bringing people in to get income. Like, it's a lot of different moving parts that are really satisfying, and I enjoyed it a ton. And I can't wait to play more of it when it comes out at some point. I think 2026 is the only date that we know of it so far. I was going to throw it over to Jenny, but I just saw her in the dock change her
Yeah.
mind. You're not allowed to change your mind on your top 3, Jenny. What's going on?
Well, it's hard because these aren't necessarily like my top because I still haven't gone through a lot of the demos, and I'm also a little bit afraid because I at this point I don't know what demos are publicly announced, which ones are just
Just you.
here in my
Mhm.
inbox
Is
ready
that
to
one that you
play.
erased, maybe not announced yet?
I think it's announced,
Okay,
but I
because I
realized I
was
think I
gonna,
talked
like
about it before,
yeah,
and so I'm like, I talked about it during PAX West. For, spoiler alert, it was Truckful.
it's good.
Shout
Go
out to the
play it.
Truckful team. I played at PAX West, and so I wanted to talk about something I hadn't talked about before. Um, and so for what I picked for my three are titles that either two of them I one of them I've played and two of them I haven't, but two of them I have been looking forward to. So I guess maybe top three just like anticipated for me. Um, the first one, which I know we say this every time, but there are a lot of really good demos, either just coming live that happen to be around the Steam Next Fest time or are officially parting, a part of the event.
Mhm.
So it's going to be very hard to narrow it down. I think I was looking at the count that was on the Steam like preview page, and I think it was at like 4,000
That sounds right.
around
That sounds right.
just around there. So there's a lot of demos. So Akatori is by Contrast Games. This is a Metroidvania slash platformer. The pixel art looks really beautiful, very emotive, even
Mhm.
in its sort of simplistic style. Like you don't really see faces clearly. It's just a lot of really good silhouette, from what I can tell. And it just looks like a really solid um, Metroidvania platformer. You play Mako, who's a teenage girl raised in the Firebird Temple, and she has to basically embark on this journey because there's an infection and a storm that's like destroying the world, and so she's trying to save it. Um, Looks really cool. I don't know. I hope it's fun. I haven't dived into the demo yet, but
Yeah.
I will probably tonight,
It looks
honestly.
very cool. It looks like a 2.5 sort
Mhm.
of perspective as well. So,
Yeah, very vibrant colors, like stunning sort of landscapes in the background. So if you like beautiful games, this is going to be probably one to keep an eye on.
speaking of
Um,
beautiful
Nice.
games,
yeah.
Janet, what do you got going on in
Yeah.
your
This feels like a little bit like illegal to me. I mean, I know it's useful for the audience, obviously, to put stuff on people's radar, but I like to go fishing during Next Fest. I like to
Mhm.
look
Mhm.
and I go and I just like dig my grubby little paws through the bin. Like I'll filter like by opposite of popular, like low to high on like the most played, you know? Because I'm
Mhm.
like down here there's gonna be some fun hidden gems. Like I think the hidden gem hunting is the fun part of Next Fest. But also frantically double checking of like, is this like an announcing? I found two that literally already have demos, so they're already up. They're kind of like getting revamped ones for Next Fest or kind of getting them promoted during Next Fest. But Swan Song stuck out to me as just being like
Mm.
this chill puzzle game that's very leaning into like the tactile element of having like small mechanisms. That's something I'm really drawn to. Admittedly, mileage kind of varies for me. Like I wasn't as into like I like that game Boxes, but I wasn't as into what's the one that was on Apple Arcade? It's like where you fix
Assemble with
stuff.
care.
Yes. It's like Assemble Care didn't quite have enough for me to grab onto to be like engaged with it, but it did have like the great art, the nice sound design feel. Swan Song, because it has that puzzle element, I think will kind of have a little bit more for me to maybe sink my teeth into. And then one that I'm so the thing with demos is like I live in constant fear because you see something you're like this looks good, and then you play it and you're like, I wish this felt different. I have a lot of fear looking at a game called Animal Kind, which is
Mhm.
you play
Mhm.
as animals and they're in little mechs
Mhm.
and they're buddies and they're fishing and they're just friends.
They're
But
just
I'm a little scared that
friends.
it might not feel that good. But you
I'm
know what? You
looking
find that out really fast.
yeah. I'm
So
looking at the
I'm
trailer
ready to get
right
hurt
now,
again.
and a corgi just did a big stretch on a rock, and I'm in. I'm super in on this.
And there's like decorate like and also, for some of these things, they don't have to be as fulfilling from like a locomotion standpoint if the other stuff kind of works enough. So cautiously optimistic about that one. I love the art style and just like the vibes are just so cheery and nice. Like you look at
Mhm.
Animal Kind and you're like, I want to go there. So that's where I'm gonna be. Will I be happy there? I don't know, but I dream. I dream of a world where I'm in my little mech.
Yeah. It's like cute little animals in their own also sort of cute looking mechs. And it's like I see a corgi and a raccoon and a cat and I'm just like I'm so into this. And they're using their mechs to just build this happy little world for everyone to live in. So
Yeah.
what am I doing with any other demo? Because my other demo to shout out, is a sicko game for Mike. I thought I would help him out here.
Hmm.
It is Mole. Y'all need to play this. Mole is so like, it's not terrifying in the sense that it's, like, scary, but it's, like, it has, mouth-washing vibes so hard. So what I have played of it so far, it's got concepts that are gonna be coming together, I can already tell. You're on this subterranean digging ship. Something weird has happened, you've awoken. The way that you open doors, by the way, the key is a cassette tape that you carry with you. You put it in the thing, and I was, like, playing this, I'm like, "How many people here, like, literally on the council, but, like, I think maybe a bit younger than us, have touched a cassette tape in their life. Like, not even played it, but, like, touched one. Like, I definitely remember taking a pencil and, like, rewinding and doing
Yeah.
cassette tape stuff, but I'm like, how many people have that core memory? So maybe it won't hit as hard, but I was just like, "Oh," and it feels good and tactile, and then everything is dark, so you're going down to, like, get the fuses set, and then once you get the lights running, you look behind where you just walked, and you've, like, walked through a trail of blood because there's a body, and it's a murder. So, that's where we start off with this horrifying situation where we're underground and someone's dead and we don't know what's going on. So go check out Mole. Really, really good. The
I had a
thing
cassette.
you had a cassette. Oh,
I
Janet.
did have some cassettes, yeah. Like from when I was a kid, I had a boombox, and the boombox had a cassette player in the front.
I love
So
it.
like I've had at least a cassette. And then I went to the a preview event for Mixtape here in LA, and they gave out a cassette.
They did, yeah.
So, but do I have a way to play it? No, I don't. I don't. But cassettes actually coming back as far as analog media. Like the kids are getting into
Mhm.
cassettes,
The kids are
and
in.
I'm like, should I join the kids in getting into cassettes? Maybe. Is the audio quality terrible? Yeah, but it's kind of in a nice way, right? Like I don't
Yeah,
know.
he
There's
knows.
something there. So I don't know. Might dip into that.
Um, so the only thing that my 3rd game has in common with the last game I talked about is that they're both sort of voxel-y in nature. So Echo Generation 2, I played as well, the demo for. It's fun, it's vibrant, it's got a lot of personality in it. I felt so rewarded because I was looking in little crevices. I was like, someone's not gonna look here, but I'm gonna look here. And then I found something. I was like, yes. Uh, so go check that out. If you haven't played Echo Generation, the first one, I don't think that you're gonna be lost on what's happening. It's very sort of Stranger Things. You are a child in a facility for some reason. Your mind powers are starting to murder people. And I think it's set in like 87, I want to say. So like it's got very much those vibes to it, and it's just a little uh it's beautiful. It's a deck builder action turn-based game that it's a lot of fun to play, so go check that out if you haven't, if that's something that you wanna check out during Steam Next Fest. Jenny, I didn't know
Yeah.
this next game had a demo, and now I'm really excited about it. And now I made you
Yeah.
nervous because 'cause you're like, "Do I have to check to see if I
No,
can talk about
so
this?"
the the developer, when I commented on his Instagram, he messaged, like, put a comment publicly saying that there's gonna be a demo available for Next Fest. So I'm gonna say, since you commented it publicly
I love
on
it.
an online space, that counts as me being okay to talk about it. And so, Odd Fauna, Secret of the Terra Beast, it is coming to early access, and this is going to be the first playable, I think. This demo is going to be the first playable, I think, that's been available since the game started development. What's really cool is this is a husband and wife team, and the wife, Emma, has created these little creatures called Odd Fauna. They're just sort of whimsical, like funny looking little monsters, basically, and they're all very cute and friendly and charming. And she actually makes them, I think at some point was making them like out of clay and like actually creating them as art pieces. And her husband, who used to be in AAA development, has moved into creating a game and a new IP based on the Odd Funna creatures. And so this is just meant to be a very relaxing, tend and befriend kind of game. You have a beast that you're building sort of fauna and life on the back of. You're helping build out the world, and there's a blight that you're trying to remove. I think when I look at this, I think a lot of like Yonder the Cloudcatcher Chronicles, which is an older, very open-ended, also sort of tend and befriend kind of game where it's relatively low stakes. It's just if you like being in a world, making it better and seeing cute things. That's what this seems to be. And so I'm excited.
Yay.
Yeah,
Art is
it's
like
so cute.
so
I
incredible to look at.
yes.
Um,
Mhm.
It's
it's very like Where the Wild Things Are coded.
yeah, it's
Yes,
almost Where the
that's
Wild
what I was
Things
trying to think
Are and,
of.
like, Tim Burton kind of met in the middle and got like, cozy.
Mhm.
And I like how
Yeah.
the movement it looks like intentionally crunchy, but in a way that's fun and not seemingly not to like frustrate, like in a way that's very like you're kind of bipping and booping around.
Yeah.
I like that a
Bippin' and
lot.
boopin'. Also,
Yeah,
Yes.
just the way the little arms animate.
yeah,
It's so cute. They're just
they
little buddies.
there's a creature here that I am staring in the face, and it's got a little snoot and ears. It looks kind of like an armadillo. It's called a clonk, and I just want this immediately. I
With like the
want
mask
this.
thing, yeah.
I want a
Mhm.
plushie of this. I want to hug it and
This looks good. I also kind of want to eat everything in the game.
yeah.
It's one of those where like it looks like you
Yeah.
could bite and it looks like everything's made of fonda.
Oh
Yeah, it does.
yeah.
Yep.
I could eat this.
This
Oh
is
Yep.
my
good.
gosh.
Yeah.
What if we commissioned a cake
Forget all
for
my
the indie
games.
council?
I'm
Let's
just gonna play
yeah.
this.
Okay, y'all. Is it cake? It's the
Is
ultimate
it cake?
question.
Odd Fauna edition.
Janet, did you want
Yeah.
to jump into a third demo for everyone to go check out?
I just have doubt because I'm like, I don't know. So I'll just be more general for my like ending bit. I think my plan this next fest is just gonna be to go like I think I want to try to go mostly genre specific. I think I want to try to play all the platformers I can
Okay.
in next
Yeah,
fest.
yeah.
And also potentially I don't know if I want to go all, but maybe all the idle games. Like there was one that I will see if I can find the tab that I was looking at. That's like a sector of gaming that I've been getting more into recently as I've been trying to be a little more focused in my work. It's like, what if I can also turn that into gaming? And I'm trying to grab the one that I had. It had a really long name. I'm sorry, it's like bogged down by all of I opened every tab to every game you guys mentioned so I could add it to my stuff. But yeah, that's just generally what I'm gonna be on the hunt for. I don't know if y'all have like beyond like the PR emails, the wish lists that you already had because they do the surface. Like these are
Mhm.
wish listed things that have demos. Do y'all have any other method to the madness, or are you just following what the streets are kind of putting out there?
I usually I'll do those. I'll do the things that are sent to me. I'll check out the things on my wish list. But usually I'll just go through and like what are the different genres and what are the different like there are things there's one tab in there I saw that was like themes and the themes were like me coded and I was sort of worried about why they were so me, but one of them was like medieval. I was like, that's not a theme, but I love it. So I was just going through and I'm like, all the medieval games, that's what I'm gonna play.
Oh, I found the one that I was looking for.
Go for it.
Yeah, Greenhearth Necromancer.
Okay.
Admittedly, like I'm not as obsessed with like the art style. It's not a bad art style. It's kind of like Botany Manor esque,
Mhm,
but like
mhm.
I'm not completely so. Like when it comes to idle games, you are staring at it so much that I'm like I don't know if I like this look as much as other things. But this is also kind of a mix where it's labeled as semi idle. So I'm curious how that plays out. But I am obsessed with gardening and necromancy. So this is kind of like I'm kind of a mark for this. I like magic a lot in media. So the idea of this being sort of like a whimsical, witchy, tending to plants. There's a little bit of an undead vibe going on. I just like that a lot. And if there's a little bit more, I think, to the cycle that can be really compelling because I do think as much as like idle games are meant to be like a set and forget second monitor vibe, I personally have found that my taste in idle games is one that has some form of like progression, like some way to kind of have the
Mhm.
trophies on the mantle. It's like what I liked about Rusty's Retirement was like you can see the place the farm kind of bloom and you can like dip into these efficiency cycles. So the fact that this is kind of sort of self-marketing as having like a little more to it than like your traditional idle game makes it a bit compelling to me. So yeah, I'll be second screening that. Demo's already up, but they're doing another run through with Next Fest.
Love it. Which leaves Jenny, and I'm afraid another demo that I haven't heard of that I'm going to have to download here. What is Nippet?
Yeah, Nippets. It's by Blink Industries, and this is just a
Yeah, I
super
saw
chill
this.
hidden object kind of hand-drawn game. What I love these kind of games. It's like my favorite thing to do when I unwind, especially in the evenings, like right before I go to bed. I've been loving just hidden object titles. And what I love about this one, I have played this demo, is kind of like Lost and Found Co. I think it does a really good job of signaling what you need to look for and kind of helping you keep track. I think some games are better and worse at this within this genre. And what's nice is sometimes the interactivity forces you to click on something to reveal, like open a window or like shake a tree, and that helps you find the objects as well. So it's not that everything is hidden in plain sight. You sometimes have to dig, and I really appreciate that in a hidden object game. And the color palette is just like, again, it's colorful, but it's not hyper saturated. It's got kind of like this muted wash over it, so it feels still really calming. And it's just like looking at the lives of these inhabitants in the city and maybe other biomes. I don't know. They just show the city off the most that I've seen, and it looks really cute and relaxing.
This is
That
also on
seems
my
like a
list.
vibe that we all need right now. Relaxing,
I like that
just
we're
sit back.
playing the same games at night, Jenny. I need to start. Do I actually have you
Yes.
on Steam? I don't know if I do. I
We
need to
should
start
add each
clocking
other
like
because I
what you're
need to
in
like,
there.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. This was also on my list. I kind of forgot about it, but
Mhm.
geez, yeah. I'm so excited for this game. I love hidden object games. And it's
Yeah.
great because they only make like 5 of them every like couple months, so it's like you can kind of keep up with the space. Like what's nice about getting a hyper specific genre is there's not a cajillion of them coming out, so you can like
Hmm.
really keep up with it, which is fun.
Yep.
Y'all go keep up with it at Summer Game Fest.
Summer
That's
Game
not a
Fest,
thing.
yeah.
Steam
No,
Next
not
Fest.
yet.
Not yet. We're just starting the gaming event season. And while we're at it, can we talk about February 19th, y'all? While you are watching this, it probably is February 19th.
Big day.
And in the beginning of our first episode, we talked about various things being a May 9th. And I'm wondering if we should look at February 19th as such. So let me just go over what's happening February 19th. The games that are releasing there are more than this, but these are my top sort of high level, very excited for. Love Eternal, Demon Tides, Never Prologue. I wrote Demon Tides twice, and Death Howl. In case I forgot it. There's probably something else I meant to put in there, but we also have a couple of showcases, including Indie Fan Fest, which is 10 a.m. If y'all have not seen it already, go check it out. And then Black Voices in Gaming Black History Month showcase is happening at noon. Uh, so many different things are going on there. And there are very many games that are tying into the Steam Next Fest demos on top of all of that. And there are so many Steam Next Fest demos dropping on February 19th because not only of these showcases, but because people are trying to get ahead of the event itself. And there's just so much news dropping as well, things that are not even tied to any of this, but trying to get out of Steam Next Fest's way. So a lot of things are kind of dropping, which I'm going to be covering on the website. So like I'm afraid to talk about them just in case I forget when the embargoes are, but the console port for Death Howl, yes. Just to clarify on that, because I'm very excited for people to check that out. Um, what do y'all think?
Yeah,
How are you feeling about February 19th?
first of many.
First of
So
many?
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think these dates are kind of fun. I mean, this isn't obviously quite like as packed as it could be with like Death Howl being like a console port and not necessarily like the release, but it's like a big ticket item. I know Demon Tides is not a platformer that's of my style. I'm not a chain platformer person, but that game has been like very hyped for a long time. So obviously we've talked about Love Eternal quite a bit on the show. Neva has a lot of weight like in the indie space. And then Death Howl is like you mentioned, kind of, I wouldn't say an up and comer, but like that has like a bit of its buzz too. And it's always cool when an indie game can get a console port like so close to its main release. Like that's kind of a surprise. Like it came out December 9th of last year. For it to already have a console port is really cool and kind of unique. So yeah, not too shabby, I feel like, but also not a million things. A
Yeah.
couple things, a little
Mhm.
sprinkling of things. I think it also helps that I think at least half of these games are short. Like Love Eternal's not too long. I'm not. I assume Neva's kind of on the shorter end.
Yeah, it is.
I know Death Howl is really long, and I can't speak to Deep in Tides because I don't know offhand. But so
Death
kind of
Howl
a nice mix.
is supposedly 25 hours. That's what the developers think it should take you. It doesn't. It takes you like 40 to 45. So
Yeah, and
yeah.
even 25 hours in the indie space is like shocking. I know we have Silk
Yeah.
Song's like a huge popular indie game, and it's very long, and there's other like big hits that are very long. But like it, typically an indie title is not long.
Yeah. I
Mhm.
suspect you
So
probably
that's like
could.
40 AAA hours, a 25-hour indie
What?
game.
I suspect you could go faster, but you can't because it's such a fun game to play. And so much to
If
do.
you're not going faster, Jill, the regular people have no shot in hell. Because I feel like I Jill, is there a
I'm
game
speaking.
genre you're not good at?
Is there a game genre I'm not good at? I'm not a huge fan of first person shooters. Uh, I don't.
But are you? But are
Are
you
you
also
good
not
at
good at
it?
them?
Okay, so I am.
Because that's what you're good at, not what you like.
I now I feel like I'm bragging, but I played Luna Abyss for Steam Next Fest. The demo is up, really good. I was contacted by someone that said that final boss in the demo took them 9 turns, and I didn't die. So like I don't know. Maybe I'm really bad at everything. Maybe I'm really bad at everything, but I
Wait, that was a story to convince me that you're not good at games. Like I'm
Yeah, I was
confused.
like, "Wait, but you
no,
just said you
I
didn't
was gonna
die."
say,
Yeah.
I'm not great at first or shooters of most kinds, but then I'm like, wait, I did just play a shooter and it did do okay at it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah. It's okay if you're not bad at anything in
yeah,
the gaming space. That's okay.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
probably
That's
really,
okay.
I'm
allowed.
bad. No, I'm really bad. I'm really bad at
You're what the
shooters.
angry
We'll
people
say that.
online dream. They're like, why can't everyone play as good as Jill? And it's like, I don't know. I'm not good at everything.
And
I'm
then
trying.
or it's just every time that I stream a game, I gaslight all of my chat to be like, this is the first time we've done this. So there we go. Yeah,
Man,
no.
and here I am with my chat, and I'm just like, "This is the 50th time we're doing it, and we're gonna stay here until it gets done."
Y'all,
Yeah.
we're gonna talk about Love Eternal later. So maybe that's the game I'm not good at. But yeah. So I think February 9th might be the first May 9th of this year. I think actually late January had another
19th.
date. 19, 20, 21, somewhere in there for January. Oh,
Well, you
sorry.
said February 9th.
February
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 9th.
19th
19th.
probably was in there. So we're doing good for our bingo, I think.
Yeah. I do also feel like we touched on this earlier, but Steam Next Fest is getting longer and longer in the sense that the PR for it and the emails start earlier and earlier.
Mm-hmm.
I actually I have a love-hate relationship because with my marketing PR brain, I'm like, "Oh my god, why are we prepping for this like 3 months in advance?" This seems so long, but from the like coverage creator standpoint, I this is maybe the most like calm I feel like I've gone into a Next Fest in a long time. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
also because it's the first one of the year, so I feel refreshed and excited for what's coming ahead, but I feel like I've already gotten to play a lot of demos already. I've started gathering my thoughts. Uh, so it is kind of nice from a preparation standpoint. Like, even though I still am uncertain of what to talk about versus what I can, um, I feel like I've played more than I have ahead of the next
Yeah.
fest than
Yeah.
normal.
I think I've played more ahead of time than I've played in some Next Fests already. So I'm really excited about that. And Jenny, I hope that you continue to have your thinking cap on because we're gonna go to topic of the show. And it's all about, does it matter? I watched the PlayStation State of Play last week, and I had a very interesting reaction to it coming out of it. There were several games that popped up that I was initially just like super excited for. I saw who was making it, or I saw what the franchise was, and I was ready to pop off. And then I realized, like, oh, this isn't actually indie. And we've talked on the show plenty of times about what is or is not indie. But what we haven't really talked about is, does it matter what we call it? Does it matter if it's indie or not? So I kind of want to dig into that angle. Let's talk first about the games that popped up at PlayStation State of Play. So, opening the show, I went absolutely wild when I saw Kenna Scars of Cosmora, and I was like, this is a game that won Best Independent Game, Best Debut Game in 2021. Let's go. Another indie. Love it. And then they dropped the wording, which almost every single one of these dropped: partnership. They're partnering with, they're partnerships with. So they're partnering with PlayStation Studios to make this game. And from what I can tell, Sony is backing this. Um, so you could probably debate, and we could, but there's going to be a lot of question about whether or not this is indie. Second one that hit me, I was immediately so excited to see Motion Twin and even Evil Empire pop up on the screen, and then I saw that it was Konami Digital Presents. I'm like, Castlevania Belmont's Curse. I was like, let's go. Castlevania made by indies. The Dead Cells teams come together to do a Castlevania. I love it. But again, it where the money comes from. And it's a very similar thing for my sentiments towards the Triple I showcase and whether or not the Rogue Prince of Persia is or is not an indie. And then last but not least, we hit God of War Sons of Sparta, which is developed by Mega Cat Studio, but published by and sort of again partnerships with Santa Monica Studio, which is God of War Studio, everybody knows. AAA big studio. So as far as dwelling on whether or not these are indie, there is no question that there's a lot of question about what they are, but does it matter to define indie? Does it matter to put them in uh, a specific moniker or label on them? Does indie matter in this particular sense? And I thought about it in various different points of view, from like the player's perspective, from the PR perspective, from media, the gaming landscape in general. So let's jump into that topic with a very significant article. Jenny Wyndham on the importance of indie games and being part of a community.
I was like, "What is this?" It took me a minute to even recognize what this was.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Jenny had a very
deep cut.
lovely chat about indie games. It seems like when you were out at PAX Australia last year, just talking
Yep.
about what it means to be indie, why it's important, why that community is kind of built up, and it goes into what I think of as far as players as kind of like indie as identity.
Mhm.
Um, so Jenny, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think I'm, like, trying to remind myself even sort of what the article's questions were about,
Don't worry, everybody. We're going to put that link
yeah.
up down below so you can read through all of Jenny's wisdom.
So, at least in sort of the framing of this article, I talked a lot about how I was personally a little bit disenfranchised with the games in general. Like, I felt like I had seen most of the industry moving towards, especially at the time when I was in college, like team-based first-person shooters, a lot of like stories that I felt like I didn't personally care a ton about. Great games, just not interesting to me personally. And so I had felt for a while like maybe games weren't for me. And what was really exciting was right after I graduated college, I was on Steam for some reason, just browsing, and stumbled across some indie games. And it really opened up a whole new world because I saw this type of game that seemed to focus more on the stories that I wanted to experience, the mechanics that I thought were really interesting, and things that I had never seen in games before on smaller scales that I felt were more accessible and approachable to me. And so indie games for me were an introduction back into gaming. Um, and of course, now I play all sorts of, I play AAA games, I play indie games, but there was an approachability to indie titles in particular that allowed me to connect with other people and allowed me to reconnect to games. And I think that was a big chunk of what I was talking about in terms of like identity and how for me, like when I came back in, I created content focusing on indies because these were the games that got me just back into gaming.
For the games that are in question here, the PlayStation State of Play games, how does that connect for you? Are you going to approach covering them,
You
or are you
know,
going to, I, you know,
yeah, it's interesting because I don't know if I'll be covering a lot of the PlayStation State of Play games that were just recently announced. But that's not necessarily because I don't believe they're indie, but more because just I'm not as into a lot of the games that they talked about in this most recent showcase, but I am open to, like, for example, the God of War collaboration between like Motion Twin and Santa Monica. I I don't know if like indie purists would call that indie necessarily, but I would be open to covering it because this is an indie team afforded an opportunity to work at a level that isn't normally accessible to a lot of indie teams. And I feel like there has to be room personally for us to be able to cover that and be excited for this team and to show like this indie mindset within a triple A like pipeline. I think that there's something really interesting there. So I wouldn't be personally opposed to covering it. I just am not personally interested in the God of War
right,
franchise
right, right, right.
specifically.
As far as India's identity, going in and championing this specific thing, or going in for the community of it, is this something that we need to, like, as a player, is it something that is, it matters whether or not this counts as indie or not? Does it still have that sense of community when we get those big AAAs coming in and partnering? Do we lose that, or do we see an expansion or a path for perhaps disenfranchised people to come in into the communities of the AAA franchises?
I don't know. I feel like it opens up a path. I feel like anytime you see these crossovers, whether it's like the teams crossing over, like an indie team and AAA team, or even genres crossing over, you get people who just through curiosity will explore things they haven't explored before. And so I feel like it can open doors for people who are God of War fans who never would play an indie to come and say, "Oh, what else has Motion Twin done? Oh, what are games like the other games Motion Twin has done?" And dig a rabbit hole, dig deeper for themselves and vice versa. I think it's great for people who play indie games to, if they're interested, say, hey, I liked this God of War, sort of collaboration that happened. Um, Let me play the actual God of War franchises. And then, like, what else is there? If I discover I like this kind of game and this type of experience, what is there for me to, try? So I think it's good. I get hesitant when we, like, indie and any term we use is there to help us categorize and to help us just better determine and decide who we're talking to and why. And I think indie is turning into a term like almost like cozy,
Mhm, mhm.
where um, there has to be a certain amount of like context that you need to play in your head and like determine as you're using it in these different conversations because it can mean very different things to different people. And each of those things could actually be correct,
Yeah.
depending on the context of the conversation.
I had a really what I felt was perhaps pessimistic but interesting comment under my article about all of these games and their indie status and or not. Saying essentially at this point, this is what the quote said. It was indies are anything under like a certain price point. I think it was like $30 or something. And I was like, that's a really like again pessimistic but interesting, because there is a very big amount of this being about money, and where the money comes from and who's spending the money, um, and a sort of comment perhaps on authenticity as we understand it, as indie purists may understand it, as being a difference between bottom line business of the big corporations coming in and exploiting the indie versus what you've just said, Jenny, about the opportunity for these devs to open up to more people and to get people interested. And I thought that I don't know if I like the pessimism of that particular statement, even though there is something to dig in there. Janet, you got any thoughts on the player's point of
Yeah,
view in this?
I forgot that God of War Sons of Sparta is an indie game, which I think speaks to how like unusual I think it is. I mean, it's not like it's never been done before. The idea of an indie studio collaborating with AAA or using a AAA IP. I mean, I think Cadence of Hyrule was a
Mhm.
big
Mhm, mhm.
I wouldn't necessarily say it was the first one to do that, but it was what kind of put that idea on the map, I feel like. But yeah, even though it the God of War game is made by Mega Cat Studios, which is very much an indie team. It just kind of like when I was writing like what I've been playing, I was like, I just looked right over it because it is a God of War game and it's called God of War. Like while it came to Hyrule, it's like it takes a couple words before I remember that it's a Zelda game kind of thing. So that's kind of a funny situation that I think speaks to how like it does feel like it's dipping more into technicality territory. And I think it's also maybe introducing a new thing into the industry that we maybe just don't have the language for yet. Like it's half indie. Like I don't know if there's not a cute term for that, but that's kind of is what it is because it is made by Mega Cat Studios. But I believe like the writing and kind of like the lore components were done by the people who work at like the AAA side of things. So I don't know what the phrase for like a half indie game is, and like is a half
Mhm.
indie still an indie? Yes, stares into camera, right? But it's like okay. I think the other thing so many things to think about. The comment you pointed to is quite funny. It's not true, but it is real. You know,
Mhm.
where it's like
I'm
it's
with
not
you. Yeah.
factually true, but I feel you on it because I genuinely was having this conversation with Isaiah like a few nights ago. We were on Steam. You know, we're in our PC era right now, getting some more of that for what we've been playing. But while we were browsing games, like if we came across a game we want to play that was $30, I was like, oh, that's an indie full price game. That's an indie $60. And it's
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
I don't necessarily promote that line of thinking, but that is a thought I had. You know what I mean? Because I think at the end of the day, like we are obviously consumers and also, critics and creators and, for some of us, game dev and marketing and all these other hats that like are worn across the show. But yeah, like that is a thought that's had. I think ultimately it's also important to check your own like indie ego at the door a little bit. I do think unfortunately there are facets of the indie community, much like any indie scene, whether it's music, movies, whatever, that can be a little snobby and a little exclusionary. Where it's like, oh, it's only indie. Like I saw a really funny joke from someone that was like, indie is when it's a game only I know about. And like that's so real because there are people who feel like it can't be indie if it, has a lot of money, or it can't be indie if IGN's writing about it, or it can't be indie if it's in the PlayStation Showcase. Because this idea of like you, people almost like conceptualize like indie games sometimes as like being in like the hood of game development. And if you make it out of the hood, you're not really from here. And it's like, and it's this idea of like you've lost an essence of your culture by moving on to greener pastures in a financial sense or a marketing sense. And I think it's a an unfortunate and very, like, limited way to look at indie games. It's not how I like to look at indie games. But that being said, I think there's non-toxic ways to go about that. Like, if you're someone who, you know, you really wanna play lesser known games, there's nothing wrong with that. Whether it's because you want to uplift developers, whether it's because you want to be like a tastemaker for yourself, whether you're a content creator or critic. I mean, I mentioned that today where it's like, I want to play the game no one's emailed me about because I can't afford the marketing. I think that's fun. I think it's exciting. And to me, that's like me doing a service for my audience. And that's why I like to do that. But I think you can't take that too far and go into the, oh, well, only my like sort of hidden away like games that I played this at UCLA from the student project. You don't know. It's like, okay, now we're kind of losing the plot a little bit. So, yeah, that's kind of where this conversation sort of lands for me. We're like, I do think these are indie games, but they're like bougie indie games. And there's not really a good word for that or a way to like phrase that. Cause I don't think they should
Mhm.
be like kicked out of the indie club just because they're taking a different route than what other indie teams take. Um, but it is a different feeling, and I don't think we've come up with really, like, language to encompass that,
Yeah.
that becomes meaningful. I also think it's not a wide enough scale occurrence to necessarily warrant separate labeling, but I think one day it could be. I mean, that's why we have double A, but then double A kinda went away linguistically because the double A studio doesn't really exist in the way it
Right.
used to back in the day, and now what would have been double A is indie, and I think there are people that sometimes tier that where it's like, "Oh, this looks too good for an indie game." Like, I've seen that thrown around. I'm like, "Okay, well, I think we're being very, like, limited sometimes in what we conceptualize as an indie game." It can't just be like what's at the Seattle Indies Expo, which, by the way, shout out to that. That's a great if
Great.
you're an indie
Absolutely.
sicko,
Where we saw
it's got
Wanderling the first time. Great.
and it's got that kind of, like, grassroots feel. It's a guy in the chair he brought from the hotel. Like, and I like that stuff. I think that's really fun. But I think we have to be careful that we're not getting higher on our own supply and becoming just, like, snobs that are
Yeah.
sort of, turning our nose up
Mhm.
at not just the studios that are doing this work, but also the players that are engaging in the work,
Yeah.
and kind of gatekeeping. Who can say they like indie games? Is
I
it just it is it wanting it to go beyond that indie game the movie thing, which I'll admit that was my starting point in indie games. And yeah, that's really basic, but who cares? It got me to play indie games, and all of those games are also indie games.
yeah.
To have then gone on to be auteurs of many issues, but that's a separate thing. I don't know.
Don't worry about that.
Who survived that documentary? Nobody. I don't know.
Um,
But yeah,
I I think what you said about language is really the central idea behind the "does it matter" question for me. Because I think it does matter what language we put on these things because it
yeah,
shapes not only the way that we play, but the landscape as we understand it. I think having language to describe a game that is grassroots, coming up from nothing, and a hope and a dream, that sort of thing, and having language for those people who have reputation and cachet and being able to work with the AAA studios doesn't shouldn't kick it out of the indie space perhaps, but also the wording, maybe the language is different because I think for the indie landscape, it matters how we label indie or not indie, or high level indie or triple I or whatever you want to call it, because there is this possibility, there is this tug of war between profit seeking and exploitation, and uplifting if it's in general good for like the actual gaming hobby itself because like a lot of talking about like I was thinking about Strange Scaffold here and how much they put out and it being a very sustainable model of making games and why the indie has kind of started to grow in popularity is because we're getting in the AAA space, we're seeing a lot of money and time having to be thrown in, whereas the indie space can be a lot more sustainable. And therefore, the AAA space is looking at these creators and saying, we can use this to fill the gaps. And with that, you do get into a certain like, is this being made to pad a bottom line? Does it become slop at some point? Does it become so un-indie that it can no longer be indie? I don't think we're there yet, but I think it does matter to have these conversations, and it does matter to have this language, because I want people like me, like Jenny, like I'm Janet, who it found indies and then grew to love them and grew to get this community in there. I think for me, as point of view here, a content creator, media press person, it's it is important to identify and label these, because I am purely an indie website and I'm trying to shine a light somewhere that doesn't get a lot of light. Um, but I also have to keep in mind that people are very interested in seeing the state of play. The state of play is going to be more widely viewed than most indie showcases, and for people to kind of get this barrage of, like, people are excited about Kenna. People are excited about Kenna who are not typically indie people. People are excited about another Castlevania, another God of War. So it creates a really interesting problem for me job wise because I'm like, if I define my sphere, my scope as covering indies, being an indie person, how do I go about covering these games which have the kind of financial backing and the stage necessary that they don't really need covering, but that I don't necessarily want to shy away from just because I'm indie. And like it's a very interesting dilemma to find oneself in, where the gamer in you perhaps feels differently than the press hat version of you. Do you feel that at
Yeah. I
all?
mean, I think also like for your thing, which is like I guess is me kind of like being a mirror in a way. I think in that case, you're you're an indie outlet that prioritizes just the stuff with lesser coverage. Like I think is the missing key because in your dream world, wouldn't you have everyone like every day on Earth read all of your articles, and to that end, every game that you covered would then have a light show. You know what I mean? Like I think what the situation that you're in and a lot of indie creators are in, is it not like is success then not in turn become a failure in a way? Like because and I think that's kind of the problem with sometimes if you commit too heavily to that, because it's like if
Mhm.
the point is to make a game blow up like Silk Song, not the point because I don't think that's your sole point, but it's like one of the goals, and then it does it, but then you dip before like the only way something gets bright enough is if there's enough lights on it. So if you're like I'm going to turn my light off and everyone turns their light off and then it's dark again. So I don't know if I mean, you're obviously probably thinking of this all the time, but I
Yeah.
would love to get your perspective on like that element of it because is that not also a risk if you go like too far on
Right.
the deeper cut?
And you have to balance too, because if you only cover things that no, like I had a 26 games I'm excited for in the year 2026 kind of thing.
Cute.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun and I had to cut
I
down
love the
so
little
much.
numbers. Yeah.
Um, but I got a comment on that being like, "Where's this game, this game, this game?" And then they were all like, they were all indie. And I wouldn't argue they weren't. Um, but they were games that I had considered and not put on the list because I intentionally was like, those games are going to be covered. Those games are getting into the IGNs. They're getting into the Game Informers. Like, they're going to be on people's radar if they're at all interested in indies. Let's maybe focus on some other games. And this person was very, well, as the internet tends to be, they were upset because this means best games. You should put best games on. And there is that tug of war in my soul, my indie soul, of like,
Just like cover your ass with hidden gems, and is that not gonna
Yeah.
be the which I get annoyed at that too when you ever read those hidden gem lists and it's like so it's like, okay,
Yeah, I'm
that's
like,
not a hidden
You're
gem
like,
though.
"Okay."
hidden
Like
gem.
it's gotta be
But
like I don't know about some of them. And
but
then
if
which I
you
know
Yeah.
also makes me sound
do
snobby, but it's just true. I just how I feel.
if as an indie specific website, I do all just hidden gems, you've never heard of these before, there's gonna be an audience that's interested in that. But in order to keep my website going, to continue having readership, and I'm not largely interested in viewers and numbers and that sort of thing, but if nobody comes to the Patreon, like, I can't pay my writers, like, and I would really like to do that, and I like to help people as much as I can, through that avenue. Um, so, like, I have to kind of keep in mind, like, okay, what keeps people coming back? And people are gonna wanna talk about the big ticket indie items, we've just gotten, uh, Neva Prologue that, like, dropped during the state of play, which nobody knew about, and then it dropped, and we're like, "Okay, I guess we're doing that." So, like, okay, you gotta cover that because that's a big thing, and that's gonna get people eyes, and that's something people wanna hear about. Um, and there is that push and pull of, like, when does that stop being indie enough for me to cover, and at what point do I personally just pull back because this is big enough already, or there's a lot that goes into that, and I never I there are people who champion my site because I talk about indies and I don't sell out talking about other things, like the big websites, but, like, I have a ton of compassion for anybody in this space writing about games in general because it is a lot of like, you don't get into this because you want to make money. Like, this is a passion for a lot of people,
No, but I
and,
would really love some money if anyone listening
like,
wants to just my
yeah,
Venmos in the show notes.
and
No, facts.
that's true for, like, literally every business, and I think going back to, like, indie devs and the gaming landscape, you can't throw out a game because it matters that it's indie, and indies should be getting money as well. Like,
Yeah.
I
I
do think that
really
Castlevania
hate
game is an indie though. Because it's not made by because the indie studio is not credited as the developer. They're just consulting on the project. So I do
Yeah.
think that one's
That's
different.
yeah, that's different. I do feel I feel this I hate, and we've talked about this before, but I really hate when like indie feels like it has to be synonymous with like failed
yeah.
or like not successful
Like
because
schlubby.
yeah, and I'm like I feel like that is doing a discredit to what is being created in this space. I do understand like I understand the struggle though, because just to, like talk through the other sort of side of thinking is if we have indie and it means the person in their basement, coding for years, finally makes a game as a solo dev and like makes it big. It is different than a studio who receives like millions of dollars of funding, but retains, they have creative IP ownership, so they're still technically independent. Um, that is such a wide breadth. And it's like if you have a basket of fruit, that means very different things if you have a basket of strawberries or a basket of apples. Like being specific with your words helps you understand and like categorize things. And so I understand indie is struggling right now because the main question, does indie mean anything these days? I think we are moving in a direction where because it's so amalgamous to a lot of people, it's losing its meaning, and that's where like all of the struggle is coming from. And it's hard because indie used to mean kind of not necessarily counterculture, but it definitely had that like counterculture feel to it. It's like, oh, we're not the big companies. We're just people who are in it for the passion and we're in it for the love of the game. And now it's really hard because it is getting, which is a good thing, more accessible to make games, more approachable. There's different funding avenues, there's different opportunities they can take. And so this accessibility of the industry means indie has meant more and more and more. And so I don't know, it's just interesting because it is much more of an aesthetic now than anything else. And as an industry, if we want to have an answer, we need to decide what we care about. And I think we mentioned this maybe in our last conversation on indies, but it's like if we want to say just for the sake of the definitions, it means like this amount of money, we can like decide that. If we want to say it means like these things, we can make those calls, but we just don't have the language for everything else that it doesn't mean at this point in time.
Love it.
Also, on the other end of the spectrum, like I think I wouldn't fault anyone for saying that, like, if there's AAA involvement, whether it's like
Mhm.
publishing or IP, it's like, okay, well, now this is like a AAA fiasco now. It is an indie. Like, I wouldn't necessarily fault someone for having that perspective because I can follow that line of thinking and I think it can make sense. However, on the other end of things, and I know these deals can work out for people, so I'm not saying that like I hate to see them necessarily happen, but maybe being able to have like partnerships with AAA, whether it's like through IP or through publishing, is like the better evil, just to use like AAA as evil, just for the sake of this conversation, not for realsies, but just for funsies.
Oh my God,
Um,
cancel
m-
Janet.
Maybe it's the better
We
evil, you
clipped that out
know.
with no context. What's happened?
People will still say I'm a Sony shell, so it doesn't really matter. But anyway, maybe it's the better evil that isn't, getting acquired. Because I feel like back in the
Yeah.
day, what we just see is we would just lose an indie studio to acquisition. Now,
Mhm.
maybe to some
Yep.
people, this is kind of the same difference, or maybe it's like, oh, well, now they're like in bed with AAA without the safety. It's like kind of like it's like a AAA situationship kind of thing. It's like, well, we're not really together, but we go out every Friday night. Like, I don't know. So I don't know. I do think that's a potential like bright side to this element because I do think in decades past this would just be like PlayStation acquires Megacat Studios and then like Megacat Studios shut down. Like that's unfortunately a lot of times the loop for indies getting acquired by the AAA landscape, or you end up just I don't know stuck in there a little bit. Even if like I know there's been a big issue with Microsoft and the Microsoft boycott and how that has affected the indie landscape. Now I'm not saying throw your moral positioning away to support indie games, but it is one of those things of I think a lot of people were like, oh man, it sucks how many indies are maybe like tied up in different deals, whether it's Game Pass placement or publishing or places that used to be indie like Double Fine that have since been
Mhm.
acquired.
Mhm.
And I'm guessing unless you're I think you'd have to be a really specific person, but I imagine a lot of people that play indie games don't necessarily stop playing games from a studio just because they get acquired. Like I'm guessing if you played Double Fine as an indie when they got acquired, you were probably still rocking with Double Fine. Now maybe you are
Mm.
just like that hardcore, which sure. I mean, it's a hobby. You can engage with it however you want. I think that's a little dramatic, but I don't know. It's just how you want to spend your time and money. So, um, yeah.
Yeah.
So there's that. It's something
I think there
half indie.
I think this all comes to
Indie point 5.
oh
Yeah.
gosh. And then it just gets different points as we go along.
Oh God.
Mess.
It's in.
I
Yeah,
think
it's just in.
overall the final I think we're all saying that it does matter um whether or not something is indie and what we call something. And I think overall what really matters in this is it indie space is that we keep wrestling with it, which is why we keep having this conversation because there will always be that pool between the the players for whom Double Fine moving on to the AAA space does matter to them, and they're going to stop rocking with them because they want to be there championing the little guy, and they've made that a part of their gaming identity and space and community, and that's a part of the indie landscape, as well as there are people who are happy to support the people that they came up with, and see them do well and move into bigger opportunities and see them get the money they deserve, frankly. So,
I think also like with the, you brought up the idea of to what end could this be like exploitative or, the bottom line for like a big company. I mean, you've even mentioned this with like the idea of when a AAA publisher makes like an indie publishing arm, it's like, can that ever really be indie if
mm,
it's still like, is EA Originals indie because it comes from EA, and obviously EA got a lot going on right now, so we ain't gonna touch that. But like those conversations are interesting. I think ultimately why that doesn't matter as much to me is you can do like the right thing for the wrong reasons and it kind of still like works out type thing. Like I think obviously yes, are they profit? Yes. The answer is yes, they're profit driven. They care about the money. They absolutely care about that and I do think they care about that more than they care about art. Why do I think that? Because Sony is a business and not an art company. And PlayStation might be the artsiest place in the world, but they're owned by Sony. So like that's and the more you have stakeholders that have inherently financial stakes, like the more that it's difficult to sequester that. It's obviously possible. I mean, you see that in the editorial space all the time when it comes to mainstream. Like that's the whole point of keeping business separate from editorial from like an ethical standpoint, but also like the ability to do the work. It's like you're not here to find out about how much money you're making. You're here to make your art and someone else figures out the business of your art in an ideal circumstance. But yeah, I don't necessarily think that means it's like a bad thing because it's like, yeah, they're definitely doing it for that. I don't think they're necessarily. I'm sure some people maybe have that sentiment of wouldn't it be cool to give like an indie team or an IP or like to work with like the studio or whatever. But yeah, there's probably someone that's like, this is a good, financial proposition and fills the portfolio of what our IP stands for. And like, but if both of those things end up working out towards the same goal, I don't think it ends up mattering. Again, putting aside actually doing evil shit and not just wanting to make money, which you could argue is a little bit evil inherently, but hey, we all got rent to pay, like that. So I
True,
don't think that's
true.
as big of a deal. But I think for some people, maybe they start to think a little bit too much about how the meat is made, and maybe that is an element of indie that people I think try to divorce themselves from. But I think that's silly because so much of indie development is driven by money
Yeah.
and lack of money and
Yep.
struggling for money and hustling for money. Like
Mhm.
I think we do need to let go of this idea that like indie is purity in artistry
Yeah.
because it's not. It's not. Your art stops getting pure the second you sell it. The second you sell it, it's not pure. And that's not a bad thing. I don't think that's bad for your work. That's what I do with my work. That's what we all do if we work in the arts. But like, it's not just for you because you have like it's just not. So I think that's the other thing too. And there's this idea of like the more you lean into like something that is more representative of money, the more like tainted it becomes. And I think that's also like a little silly because it's already tainted, which I know is dark to say,
This
but
is a
that I'm just gonna
business.
say it.
Yeah, it is a
Yes.
business first and
Um,
foremost. People don't do this for the joy of doing it most of the time. They do need to eat as well. I think overall, with the question of does it matter? Because we could all just walk away and let people play whatever they want to play. Um, I think for us, particularly for us in this space of like looking at indies and covering them, um, being able to wrestle with these questions is important for ultimately the players because whatever definitions they hold of these things, whether it's on one end of the spectrum or the other, these discussions help inform them to make the decisions that they believe in. So I think ultimately that's why it matters whether or not this is indie.
I sent a picture of my cat winking,
It's
and then I
really
tried to
cute,
wink, but then
everybody.
it came out as like a
cute.
crying face.
Oh my
And now
gosh.
he looks kind of derpy, but it's a funny
It's
thing.
still cute.
And I think an
Here's a question
excellent
for this show.
I'm ready.
Quick down the line. These three, are they games we're chatting about or games that we're not chatting about?
For me in particular, I think the only way I am covering them is you can go check it out. I have an article up is in through the lens of what is indie and what's going on. I don't think that I cover Kenna Scars of Cosmora because it is so heavily partnered with Sony and Sony is essentially publishing it as far as I can tell. Um but like I don't want to discourage anyone and be like, "Hey, don't check these out." Um
Yeah, I mean, but like for our podcast, because we have this conversation offline sometimes of, hey, is this
Is
indie?
this indie?
Is this not? So what are these
Like,
three? These all like
y'all
on
this
the
is the same
these in the bin or like what's going on?
I think
Like
it's
I
the
just
same
need
conclusion we reached for the Rogue Prince of Persia is, I think some of us are gonna believe in covering it and some of us are not. And
I'm like, I
if
feel like we didn't have a conclusion. That's the thing.
that's the thing
No.
is that we don't really. Some of us are gonna
Look, am I putting God of War Sons of Sparta in what I've been playing or not? That's my question.
you can go right on
I
ahead
say
if
go
that's what
for it.
yeah.
I say you can go for it.
I
Sure,
think it
why
is
not? Why
fine
not?
for the council itself to be different facets of the indie opinion. That's why we're here. That's why we don't just have one person monologuing, so that we get everybody's perspective, and that's important. Speaking of games we've been playing, let's talk about them. um, Janet, did you put God of War on there? Let's talk about
I
whether or
did put
not.
God of War on there,
Okay, go
but
for
it's funny because I put it, like I said earlier in the show, I put it on after the fact because I kind of forgot that it was
it.
like debatably an indie game, right? Again, it's made by
Mega
Megacat
Cat.
Studios, which is
Mega
wild
Cat,
because
yeah.
at the first convention I ever went to in my life, Megacat Studios was there, and like you want to talk about an indie studio, at least at that time, it was many years ago. They were in a folding table in the gym with the rest of them, you know, and they were talking to me, who was nobody, and some people might think I'm still nobody, but I was less
It
at the
was
time. So
less spotty then.
it was indie all around. I didn't know them, they didn't know me, no one knew us. It was a vibe. Yeah, I've been playing God of War: Sons of Sparta, a half indie game. It is it's fine. Sorry, it's like just it's funny to have like a big stink
After
about
all
like
of
does this
that.
count? Yes,
Yeah.
and that's the
And
thing.
then
Who
it's like,
cares? Okay, that's what it's fine. Yeah, I mean, I think it's really interesting. In the following up the state of indie kind of conversation because I think so much is at play here. The TLDR is I think this game is maybe like barely good. I think it kind of might be that 7 out of 10 scrapes by. Maybe it dips more down to okay. I'm not sure. I haven't finished it. I plan to finish it because I'm intrigued by the proposition. Just what they're doing with like taking God of War, putting in this like 2D Metroidvania space, and just seeing how they've tried to like translate elements of the mechanics from like the combat to the things that are iconic to the series, like opening the chest and having the orbs float out, the mythology element, and also just seeing what they do in the Metroidvania space, a genre that I do love, but also to love it is to hate it because Metroidvanias can be really rough. They can be really crunchy. They can be kind of dry. They can be frustrating. Like there's so many things at play. And doing a good one is hard. I think Mega had definitely and Mega and anyone else involved. Triple A. There's some. I think there was some struggle in here on making something that felt like it had a compelling hook to it, other than just that it's God of War and you like God of War, right? And what's interesting is that I think the God of War thing is both working for and against them. Again, I think this game is like critically probably like a 6 or a 7 out of 10. I feel pretty confident in that. Where it lands, I'm not sure yet. I feel like I see so many people. One, I think a lot of people are playing this game because it's a God of War game, myself included, like it's like, okay, it's God of War, I'm booting this up. Let's see what they did. But also I do get the sense, and I try to avoid doing this because I feel like it's a little inside baseball-y, like mean spirited in a way. But I get the sense that like people of all ilks, whether critics or just fans, are kind of hypercritical of this game because it's a God of War game.
Yeah.
And like, this is
Mhm.
a God of War game? Well, guess what? It sucks. And I don't think it sucks. I think it's like kind of lacking in some spots, but it has like some things are good. It kind of, is like a little caught in the middle. But because it's a God of War game, there's this like feeling of I think like for instance, this is again very inside baseball, and I get that maybe it's a little reactionary, but like on Backlogged, which is like a very like fan oriented site, it has like a 2 out of something like 2 like look. I play a lot of games. I've played some games that are not very good. I've never seen a game that I've played have a score that low, and I've scored plenty of things lower than that. So it's just I'm just a little like I think the reaction has been really strong. Now, also, is that just the element of a lot of people are playing it, and with a lot of people will come like a wider array of opinions. I don't know, but there has been kind of a weird like it helps get people in the door, but then when they're in the door, they're mad because it's not good enough or it's not as good as they wanted it to be.
Mhm.
So yeah, we'll see. I'm gonna keep going with it. I'm very like hot and cold on it at different parts. There are things about it that I really like. Again, the God of War nostalgia does hit. It's fun seeing what they do with certain things in terms of like little puzzle solving, or like I just went to a spot that has like these challenge rooms that I think are cool. But I think the overall feel is not the best. It's a little it's like weirdly challenging, but not in a way that I feel like is quite compelling enough to warrant the challenge in the combat. So, yeah, next time I report back, if there's a next time, which I think there will be because I do plan to finish it, I'll just kind of give my final thoughts when I hit credits on it. But, yeah, an interesting time
Yeah.
to be in there. But that's an indie game or not indie game. And if you didn't think it was indie, just skip that section so that you
Yeah.
don't hear me talk
Skip
about
ahead.
Kratos.
But speaking of struggling, you and I have a game in common in this list. And y'all, it's about struggle. It is about the struggle. It is love eternal. Um,
I'm too
I
scared to try it.
I
The
believe
demo
in you.
kicked my
I
ass.
believe in you, Jenny. Um,
Yeah.
I
I mean, you've played like hard platformers before, yeah, Jenny?
yeah,
That's true, I have. It's just the like, the
the
switching
messing with
as you're
your
jumping, like, with the gravity, that for me is just, oh, the
when you
brain
when you
power it
hit it though,
requires.
Jenny, when you hit it, you're just like,
Yeah, that's true.
"Oh, it sings so well." But when you're like walk forward, "Oh no, I hit a spike." Walk forward, "Oh no, I hit a spike," which I did many, many times. You're like, "Do I suck at games? Is this am I terrible?" I think Love Eternal is such a unique thing. Um, its play style is very reminiscent of other games. You essentially are going through a bunch of chambers, spikes, lasers, moving platforms, and you can, as we stated, flip gravity to get through all of them. And I love they're creative. I love and hate them because, man, if you've been through the final challenge, you will never forget it in your entire life. And people are like, "Am I gonna know what the final challenge is?" You're gonna know what the final challenge is.
That honestly
Um,
might be true. I back you on that. It was really hard.
yeah. It's seared into my memory, not only because it was really hard, but because there's an extra element that's happening, which is maybe personally calculated to make me, uh, spike cortisol. Like, I was so stressed. But I don't wanna talk about that and ruin it, so enjoy that. On top of that, Love Eternal gets weird. It gets weird fast, and I loved that. And it's talking about various different like, I don't even know if I can really talk about it. Like, there are moments when this game just stops being the game that it's been and starts saying things, and I'm like, "Oh." It continues psychological horror all the way through. Um, I know Mike really liked it. I'm sorry he doesn't get a chance to talk about what's going on in this game, but it is really worthwhile playing all the way through because it goes places I've never really seen a game go before. And it makes me so uncomfortable and and confront some things in my life and sort of talk about this idea of autonomy and who we are and how we present ourselves and how we build ourselves as human beings, what keeps us locked in, what keeps us from accomplishing what we want. It's got interesting commentary on culture, but like internet culture in a really interesting way that sort of I was like, okay, I wasn't expecting this. Like, it's not that like highbrow, oh, I'm not going to understand this
So
at
you understood what
points.
happened in this game?
I
Like, is what you're saying?
no, there are elements of it where I'm like, I have no idea. And I sort of love that. Like the end of this game, I kind of I have a structure for my own sort of headcanon of what has happened. Um and I think that's what the game is for. Is like I don't know if there are going to be a lot of people who agree on what is actually going on. But y'all,
Interesting.
it's really interesting. It is so interesting to play, and then just the gameplay itself, I'm really, really like, the way I couldn't think of how to approach reviewing this game, so what I did was I took a honest to God, what I put in a group chat to help some people get through a certain puzzle, and it sounds like gibberish. It sounds absolutely like no one could understand this, but it helped 2 people get through that level. So it's sort of like the idea of what looks like gibberish filtered through your experiences can then become an understanding. And I think a lot of that is something you can kind of Janet's over there, like, I don't know.
I liked the analysis from like what you said. It's like, oh yeah, that sounds really good, and it does mean something to me as someone who also finished the game.
Yeah.
However, like Love
However
Eternal was really high on my like this is where I do my caveats. I'll skip ahead. I didn't end up liking this game. I
ooh,
know, I
interesting.
know. I was like, again, okay, the game will be fun because the gameplay is really strong. Like the platforming is quite wonderful. It's very hard, and it's exactly what I look for in a precision platformer because I love to beat my head against the wall. This is like my sicko thing that I get really into. And if you like that kind of thing, if you liked Super Meat Boy, if you like Celeste, if you like the other, usual offenders of this kind of like really difficult but short burst challenge, you're gonna find a lot to love in Love Eternal at first. But then, and the thing that bugs me about Love Eternal is I think it has amazing platforming. Boom, that's great. Then it's sprinkling this really interesting story that's sort of peeking through the platforming sections. Ooh, that's so cool. I love how you're integrating this. Then, and we, I won't say too much to like spoil the story, even though I really couldn't if I tried, though I could ruin some like surprises in it.
Uh-huh.
Then it kind of does like a bit of playing with genre and it's like a little genre twist. Ooh, we're taking a little break from platforming. Cool. Ooh, what's this? I'm wondering what's happening. I feel like I'm getting more direct narrative because a lot of the narrative at first is very like again sprinkled in, where you get like a quick cut scene. You're sort of peering into a scene unfolding in front of you. It's a little eerie, but you don't know what's up with it. You're thinking, how does it connect to things? And you're getting these intriguing breadcrumbs. And I'm like, wow, this seems so cool. I can't wait to see what's gonna happen next. What are we gonna learn? Then when they start to be more direct, I'm like, cool, we're getting into like something more concrete. I'm seeing like this girl's life a bit. I'm seeing what's happening with her. Ooh, I wonder, is this before the occurring events? Is it after? Am I stuck in a different place? Like you have these questions and it's compelling. The imagery and stuff you see is interesting and unsettling. You have a repetition of having like these different meals, and then you start to think, the literary brain, ooh, what does food mean here? Like there's things to pull on. There's interesting stuff here. But the reason this game ultimately fails for me is it was really, for me, because of how intriguing and specific the breadcrumbs were, it really did feel dependent on what that payoff was. And I don't think it really had a payoff. I don't really feel like it ended up saying anything. I don't really think it did anything by the end. So I was really disappointed by it because I can handle like vague storytelling, again, I'm trying to remember if this game was indie at one point. Tarsier back when they did Little Nightmares the first time around before they were acquired and stuff. Boom, indie game. It has a big story. People don't know what's going on really in that. There's video essays, but like whatever. But the story is so low key in a game like that I'm not really bothered that I don't like totally grasp it because it's intriguing to see little pockets of it, and I get that I could put together if I thought more about it. But I don't need to, and I don't have the desire to, and that's fine, and that works. I think vagueness only works if you're vague enough. And to me, Love Eternal got too specific in its scenes and tried to do a little too much, where it's like you're doing stuff that's artsy and cool, but to what end? And I don't think they had the answer for that. I didn't get the answer from that, and for that reason, I am out.
The funny thing is, I
Boom.
so agree with you, Janet, is that it doesn't say anything definitive at the end. You walk away not having gotten anything.
I didn't even know it was the end. Like I finished the game and I
Oh,
texted Patrick
no.
and I said,
Yeah.
"Well, in the credits roll," and I said, "Is that actually the end of
That's
the
it.
game?"
Yes.
Is what-
And I love that. And I love that. That's what I like about it. So I think this is going to be a decisive game for people. I did look, I think, at the Metacritic scores, and I think that they show this out too, because there's like a 90 at the top, and I think someone hit like
Yeah.
a 50 at the bottom, and I was like,
Wow.
I'm reading through both, and I'm agreeing with points, and I
The
think
highs
that
are really high though in the
yeah,
game, but that's
yeah,
what made the low feel where it's like if they just would have put it together, this would have easily been like top 10 for sure for me
whereas
because I
like
think that
I'm
the
Mm.
stuff's
sitting
really
back here
cool.
like floating through my brain palace and just being like, what does this mean? What is this construct inside my what is the chamber being constructed inside my
See, but
mind
like
palace, you know?
I know I'm like I'm not even gonna lie. I feel like I'm a little rude for this because I'm sure it's not true. I really felt like the way it was presented. I'm like, do you even know what you meant? I feel like you just showed me stuff.
I think also that's correct.
I think you were just showing
I
me
think
stuff.
you just showed me stuff. I
Like
think it elicits emotions that you have, and then
and
like
there's
it
like so
really
many cool parts of it. Like you have no like, because there's so many cool things in it, and then
yeah.
it's like cool. And what now? And they said, "What are you talking about? Thank you for playing." And I said, "Where is the rest of it?" Anyway,
I love
that's
it.
Yeah,
Janet and I
that's my feeling
absolutely
on it.
100% agree on
Man.
everything that happened.
I will
Yeah.
say I am now wanting to play just
I would
because
love for you
with
to
the
play it.
Yeah, come
yeah, the
in.
2 different opinions, and I'm just so intrigued
Right.
now, so I'll probably
And
hop into it this
I'd be down
weekend.
to do a spoiler cast on it too, just because I'm sure there will be like video essays also like breaking down some stuff. And again, I think there's pieces there. It just doesn't, and the pieces
I'm
are
so
so good
excited.
and cool. It just does not, it just doesn't. It just
I'm
doesn't
ready to
to me,
see
for
I'm ready to
me.
see Jenny. I'm ready to see Mike
Right.
because, oh man, this is gonna be fun. It's gonna be a fun one,
Yeah.
y'all.
Alright,
Um,
we'll do this for homework then.
Patrick also loved it. I do think I'm going to be in the general, even though the scores are
I
kind
know,
of
I
like
think
leaning
it's
my way. I
gonna
think
be
I'm in the
50-50.
minority.
I think it's 50-50.
But
Mm.
you know
People are gonna
why?
be
Can I say something that's like
absolutely.
really out of pocket? Can I
Yeah,
just like swing
safe
on
space.
people? I think some people don't have the guts to admit that they didn't know what was going on, and they're just
Emperor's
saying
New
it's
Clothes
good because they want to
situation.
seem smart.
Mhm.
And I don't think that's what you're
Mhm.
doing, but I
Mhm.
think other people are doing that.
Yeah,
I
100%.
think other people are definitely like, yeah, it was like really interesting. Shut up. You thought it was BS. Just admit it. Just admit it. Anyway, but
Love it. I love
yeah, I don't
this.
know.
Yeah. It's
I'm
great. That
honestly like
it
it's
makes
like
me like the
so
game even more
painful.
because we have such differing opinions of it.
Yeah.
I know. I mean, at
Um,
least like and again, it's so much more intriguing than like so many other games can be. And again, the high points are really high, but like, and I know this kind of would ruin the game, so I get why they don't do this. But I'm like, if you just take the platforming and like sell it on the side, because I think that stuff is so good. And again, the other stuff is it's weird because it's good when I'm in it, but then like I reached a point in the game where I was almost done, and I said if they don't land this, I'm gonna like hate that they did all this, and then they didn't land it to
mm.
me. So I was like, well, now I just feel like it's almost like if you had like a good relationship, but actually they cheated on you. Okay, well now that's not a good relationship anymore. Now that's just someone that
Yeah.
cheated on me.
Get out of here.
But it's been good to be able to talk about this game because it's been in the chamber for a while for I think a lot of us who were playing
Mhm.
during the embargo period, and
Thank
I've been really
goodness.
wanting to dig into it.
This team was really nice with code. I really
They were
appreciate
so
it.
nice. And
Mm.
I actually played it before, so I'm feeling good about 2026.
Yeah.
Normally, I'm like, oh, they gave it to me really early and I still fucked it up. Nope, not this time. Not this time.
Accomplishment. I want to go from that to a game that um kind of feels the opposite to me, which is Never Prologue. First of all, this is a
Mm.
very short game. This is a one sitting, it's over before you knew it. Maybe around 2 hours is where you're looking here.
Oh, yeah.
I still have to kind of sit and think on what my overall thoughts are. First of all, I loved Never. I think I gave Never a 10 out of 10. Like, I loved that game. The prologue does go back to before Never starts and the first meeting between her and the Alba and the cub, Neva. And what goes on there. I think it is a good game. I think there are moments where I think there is absolute brilliance of like, oh wow, that was very creative. And this team is always spot on with the visuals and just how minimalist and beautiful things can be. But at the same time, this game is very like dark, not just in tone, but also just in like coloring. Like I would have
Mm.
given anything for the at one point in this game to just be sunny bright fields or something. But there's a lot of like cloud cover and shadow and it's all very metaphoric and I completely understand. I love what they do with light and how they mess with light a little bit and put that into the game. I think on the end that people are going to really have problems with, there are like some chase sequences where it is so perfectly timed. Like I have to give it to the developer. Like this is perfectly developed in a way that if you do the things and you're not a human being and you don't mess up, it will glide. And when I did it, when I managed to get through it, I'm like, yeah, I absolutely did it. But you're not going to. There were a lot of times where it felt like they're sort of like timed situations. Um, so it felt like I had to fail a couple of times to know exactly what I needed to do in order to be perfect
Mm.
and get through. And I'm
Mhm.
never a huge fan of those sections, but I think there were some in the original Neva that I
Yeah.
really was just kind of like, okay, I'm vibing through this. Um, and it just didn't feel the same here. Um, there were definitely secrets and things that I wanted to go after, but wasn't able to. I had to kind of get through the game. And I think, yeah, just having a lot of it be darkness and muted tones, it so much of this game is about how beautiful it is, and you just don't get to see the contradiction. I guess I would have loved to
Mm.
seen the contrast of like everything's scary and terrible and they're on their own and they're finally coming together, and then like the maybe the moment they come together you get this brilliant n- existence of being in this world. um but yeah, if you liked the first Neva, this is definitely one you should pick up. You should continue. You should check it out. It's not going to take you very long, and I feel immediately connected to the characters, and when they meet, I'm like, "Oh my god, the puppy!" Like you have that feeling, and I'm like, "Nothing is ever going to happen to this puppy ever again. And anything that gets in my way is going to die." Like you have that immediate attachment. Um, but yeah, it's competent all the way through. But that's sort of where I'm landing on it.
I really hope that their next game, I mean, I really enjoyed Neva, I enjoyed Grease, however it's pronounced, I never remember.
Mhm.
Um, I really
You
hope for
never
their
remember.
yeah, it's like, I'm so sorry to everyone. But I would love to see my biggest fear for this studio is that they get locked into just making really beautiful games, but I feel like for me at least, I remember I really enjoyed Neva, but I felt like mechanically it didn't push in ways that I was hoping compared to their first title. And so I'm hoping with whatever they're working on after this prologue, which I think is a great addition, like it's so nice to be able to continue in this world, but I'd love for them to like push themselves a little more cuz like what you said where it's like this is competent. And I'm like they're a studio where I feel like we shouldn't be saying they're competent. We should be blown away. And so I just hope that they like push themselves a little more in the next one. And I feel bad because I'm like, I'm sure they're working really hard, but just as a fan of the studio, I would love to see them like swing for the fences a little bit.
Mhm. Jenny, is there anything you've been playing that swings for the fences?
Well, yeah, I feel like this is a sneaky one. I'll start with my demos. Forbidden Solitaire is a demo that I think is maybe going to be in the next fest. I don't
Mhm.
know. A demo just released, and I feel like it might be in the next fest. So I'm just going to say either
It's
way, it's a
up.
demo you should all play. Um, the premise of this game is that it's like 2019, you've discovered the CD-ROM of this old gruesome solitaire game, and you're booting it up for the first time. And so what's fun is that when you open the game, you get an OS and then you open the game again. And so there's like that meta happening. Um, the premise is you are in the game, exploring this dungeon and playing solitaire to beat the enemies, to explore, to do different skill checks and investigations. And the solitaire is really fun because it's formatted differently. So it's not just sort of the straight row. They're made in like really cool shapes, and you just play and you match the cards. You know, numbers can go up or down. You clear the board, and you're good. Um, what I loved about this demo is that the solitaire part is fun. There's a light, like upgrade sort of shop mechanic where you can get things like undoing a hand, um, adding to your health. It looks like we'll have like light buffs and debuffs that you can give to yourself. And there is a overarching mystery of like what happened to the studio that made this game. And like as you're playing, the game might be cursed, maybe not. The demo doesn't tell us, but it really strongly alludes to it. And this was just a really fun demo. I can't wait to play more. I'm hooked. I can't stop thinking about it already. So that's Forbidden Solitaire. I played the Planet of Lana 2 demo, which I would say is really good. I think it's like slightly above competent in the
I
sense that
was
I think it's
literally
Okay.
waiting for you to say
Okay.
that it was coming.
Okay.
I'm like it's like it's polished. It's really good. It's another example where I'm like, this game is beautiful. The puzzles are fun, but it's a lot of the same that we saw in Planet of Lana 1.
Mhm.
And so I think if you want more of the same, this is really great. And I think the demo did a good job of showing like, oh, here are some slightly different ways that you're going to be able to use Mui, your sidekick from the first game. He's back. The underwater biomes, which is really, really cool. So I'm excited for it, but it's another one where I'm like, I'm going to enjoy myself, but I also wished they pushed a little harder. I wish they maybe switched it up just a little bit more because it feels very competent. And I would say competent plus in this case, but yeah,
Confident
very
plus.
competent.
That's
Do
our
you think
rating system.
Yeah.
do you think part of that comes from it being like the sequel? Because I do think, and this is like
Mhm.
in a very like I relate to this way. Like there are those games where it's like it's good, and then there's games where you're like, I mean, it's good, but I mean, I just had that with the God of War Sparta thing to a degree, right? It's like
Yeah.
is part of that like that was already you already did it once, so it's not as exciting to kind of see you run through it again, even if it is a little bit like more pristine.
Yeah, I think for me, that's what it is. Because I also I love when in the same franchise, you do slightly different things, or they polish it so much to the point where I'm like, "Oh my god, this feels way better."
Mhm.
And I don't think they've done it. Like, they've polished it a little bit. I don't think they've polished it to the extent where I'm like, "Oh my god, this feels like the best iteration of the puzzle platformer that I could think of." And so in that, I'm just like, "I'm gonna have fun, but yeah, for me, it's just really repetitive compared to like what we experienced in the first one. Again, it's just the demo. So maybe in the full game,
Mhm.
there's like more stuff that they're
It's
gonna have.
totally
But
changes.
yeah.
Before you head on
Um,
out of the demo space, you jogged my memory.
mm,
The Titanium Court demo is now up in public.
yes, it
And I
is.
did play
Everyone
that
play
some
it.
time ago, and it's so freaking good. It is essentially Midnight Summer's Dream as a video game. Like that's really all
Mhm.
you need to know about it. So yeah, I'm with you, Jenny. I'm excited for it.
I'm trying to remember when I read Midsummer Night's Dream
Midsummer Night's
and what
Dream
happened in
is gonna
there.
be way
I'm
back.
like, that was like my sophomore year of high school, like the
Yeah.
official time, the first time,
And
official
then
time I read it.
also, I want to talk about another game I know that you're a big fan of as well, Jenny. Scarlet Hollows episode 5 is out this
Yeah.
they split it into two parts. The first part came out Friday the 13th and the second part fully coming out on the 20th. I haven't played the second part yet, but the first part, y'all, I'm so into this game. I'm so split because I want to play it immediately and show everybody how cool it is, but I also want to wait until it fully releases and then do an
Mhm.
entire playthrough with my community making all the decisions. Like I'm so
That's
excited for
good.
people to play this. So,
It's such a good game.
if you haven't played it, I kind of it actually is one of the games that really works episodically because it works a lot like a Netflix series or something where it's like, and this time on Scarlet Hollow. Like, it's really cool to sort of anticipate what's coming up next and how it can change and to see things morph. So I do really like actually the if you want to jump in, normally I'm not a huge like jump in while it's not, while it's still in early access, but uh, I- I wouldn't dissuade people from jumping in right now.
It still feels fleshed out enough where I feel satisfied even though I've played up to the point, where we have it currently, and
Mhm.
it's like, yeah, I feel like they have done a really good job of making each installment feel full
Yeah.
and not just sort of like you're left hanging in the wrong kind of way.
But I interrupted you, Jenny. What else are you playing?
Oh, let's see. Little Gator Game in the Dark DLC came out.
Yes.
Super cute. Again, this one is a DLC, so mechanically it's going to feel very similar, almost exactly similar to the Little Gator game. For me, this worked out fine though, because again, it's not a sequel, it's a DLC. And in this, you play the little gator and all of their little friends. This time, you are investigating a series of like caves and caverns where at the very start of the DLC, you all get kind of like, quote, trapped. You're not really trapped in the cave, but you're playing at it, and you have another villain that you're going to go up against, and story playtime that you're going to create. And it's very cute, very fun. If you love Little Gator Game, this is
You'll
again
continue
more
to
of the
love Little
same.
Gator
You'll
Game.
continue
Yeah.
to love this one. And I like this one because they have done a really good job of continuing. Because when I heard the cave sort of premise, I was like, oh, so much of the or the original installment for me was gliding around and like having that verticality. And they have
Mhm.
actually done a really good job of making this cave system feel open and fun to explore and expansive, and it's not boring, which was what my worry was this could get easily very dark and boring as a biome. They've done a lot of really fun things to make it exciting to explore and look at. So good job, Little Gator Game in the dark. And then the two more full games I have been playing. I'm going through Kentucky Route Zero for the first time, and this is an old title. The first act of the five acts came out way back in like 2013. So yeah, I'm very belated to this one. Um, the premise, it's a narrative, kind of like adventure game, I would say, and you play a delivery man named Conway who needs to go and deliver something but is unable to find the address. And this takes him on this almost like odyssey kind of journey through the mysterious highways of the Zero, which is located in a magical realist version of Kentucky. This game is like poetry. I have not finished it, but it has been incredible to play and just discuss. I'm playing it as a part of Geeks and Grounds this month. This is our game of the month. Um, I have been amazed by the references that this game just layers into every scene, and it's very theatrical. And so I've appreciated the ways, especially that the camera moves in this game. Um, yeah, it's outstanding. If you haven't played it, it is a slow burn, and it may not like the first act, I was kind of like, it's not all making sense to me. And you kind of have to just run with it and let it be mysterious. If you've played 1,000 times Resist, it's kind of like that, where you just sort of run with it and you understand you're not supposed to understand until a little bit deeper. And so, yeah, so far, very much enjoying it. And then I finished Cairn,
Yeah.
which took me by surprise. I went into Karen ready to hate it.
Ooh.
I don't like climbing games that much. Like Celeste is maybe the one mountain game that I've loved. And I don't usually like games where you have to manually like control limbs. I think it's not fun. This
Mhm.
is just not something I like. The first 2 hours of Karen were painful for me. Like figuring out the flow of movement and what the game wants you to use as a ledge to climb on versus what is not a ledge it wants you to use to climb on. It took me a long time, 2 hours about, to figure that out. But once you do, I think Karen's story is maybe one of the most satisfying with both endings, because there are multiple endings to this game, that I've played in a while. I was shocked at how invested I became in the story of Ava, the climber, and her like ultimate goal of making it to the top of this mountain that nobody ever has summited. And it has been really interesting to think about the ways that like our hobbies can become obsessions and like what that means and the character of a person and like what it takes to be dedicated to something like that. Kind of fitting because like there's one guy on Netflix who I think just climbed a building, like the tallest building in the world or something, barehanded. And I thought of him. We have the Olympics happening. I thought of the Olympics. It's like the ways that we push ourselves and like what does it cost. Really cool. So I was surprised. Like Karen is currently on my top 10
I
list,
love it.
for game of the year. So
Jenny, you were not here last week or last
yeah.
episode to hear this, but Mike is with you. Mike
Yeah.
says this is number one with a bullet. It's going to
Yeah.
be hard to surpass. So I'm really interested to see how it comes up in our top
Only two of
10.
us left. Which I forget, Jill, have you played it?
I've played like maybe the first half hour of it. I'm not far at all.
Okay. I haven't
So,
Yeah.
started it yet, so
I will
but
tell you, like the
Janet,
first 2 hours, be prepared. Like maybe you're better than me.
Okay.
That's also very valid,
Well,
like
I'm
true and
not.
happen.
Jill
I'm not.
probably is
I don't.
because Jill's
I'm
better than
not.
everybody. Jill's like, I just
I'm
zooped right up
not.
it. It was a couple hours to beat the whole game. I
Yeah,
don't know.
I just
it
went up
was
the.
Never
it
picked
was
up
great.
never picked up the maps, just kind of kept going up the
Yeah,
mountain. I don't know.
yeah, Jill's like, I didn't even need a water break. It was
I
fine.
literally just shot
Yeah.
up. I found the rocket at the very beginning. And no, Janet,
No
what else have you
facts.
been playing?
Yeah, I've dipped into Windblown as part of an initiative that I am starting for myself, which is play the early access games because you're not going to play them when they come out
Okay,
because
I
you
like
have
it.
a lot of time management problems. Is the thing that I've learned with games. And also I've decided I'm a PC gamer now, guys. This is my new
Okay.
part of my brand for
Let's
2026.
go.
Alongside having short hair until it grows back and then deciding what I want to do with it again. But yeah, I got a new graphics card which I had the privilege to be able to expense through MinMax, a company that I also work for. And in doing that, Isaiah birthed his PC using the shell of my old graphics card and be like,
Mhm.
I want to get a PC again. Why am I telling the story? Why does it matter? Because now we have two, like, kind of not directly side by side, but in the same room off camera from what you guys are viewing if you watch the video version is my desk and then like his desk, which is funny because he has a littler desk and he's like way taller than me, so that's just hilarious to me anyway. Um, but he has his like little desk and his little PC, which is like it kind of looks like a child's desk. Next, I'll show you guys a picture. It's really funny, but we're playing a lot of stuff together, and that's how Windblown came across my desk. Thanks to my colleague over at MinMax, Jacob Gettler, who said, "Hey, I'm playing Windblown. It's like this game that first dropped, I think, got a year ago,
Yeah, it's
2
been a
years ago.
while.
It's been out for a while. It's from oh god, you guys know the studio,
Yep.
the one that makes those games everyone loves."
Mhm.
That I've
Isn't it
never really
Motion
played.
Twin?
Motion Twin, yes, thank you. Yeah, just because Motion Twin's big, and this is a rogue just like that. But I don't know. I guess it's multiplayer, so I'm more open to it. And what I was looking for is because we have these setups, we're like, hey, let's play some PC games together. And something we've been wanting to do, but he didn't have a PC, so it's like, well, you could jank around on the Steam Deck, and it's kind of the same, that it's kind of limited. So now we're like, with all our freedom, with all our power, what do? We struggle to find games that we like both end up liking that click with us is what we do. Windblown is one that did stick and work quite well. I'll keep it brief because I'm sure we'll be back to it when it gets more updates or hits 1.0. But it's just a co-op roguelite. You're kind of going around almost like the combat's like a little Hadesy, where it's like that isometric. You have like different weapons, you're getting different upgrades, sort of like a cartoony look to it that has like a vibrancy that's like very akin to, what you see in like Solar Ash or the one that people liked more than Solar Ash. What is that game called? Hyperlight Drifter and Hyperlight Breaker. There we go. Though I was a Solar Ash girly. I wasn't drifting. I was in the sun
Ashing.
skating and I had a good time. Yeah, it has that style and flair to it. And I just think it's like really strong in its like momentum and its movement. It has great like sets of abilities where to me the mark of a good suite of upgrades is I want all of them. So I'm like, oh, do I want to like heal or do I want to do this poison dance? It's like you feel like that nice pull. It's got a lot of style. I'm very early. I'm only like an hour in, so I can't speak to more of the like overarching like world or lore vibes to it. But it's just really appealing and really easy, which you don't always get when you're, I think, combing for good multiplayer things. Which reminds me, I also want to add another game I played.
Ooh.
I played. Let me know if y'all were getting into this one. It's 2019 title, TikTok: A Tale for Two.
Yes.
This is the
I
only
really
show where I
enjoyed
could
that.
say this and people would
Yeah.
know what the fuck I'm talking about. Yeah, this is by Other Tales Interactive, who also made miniatures, which I've been wanting to get to
Okay,
miniatures.
okay.
It's in my library. I'll see if I get to miniatures at some point. Again, back in that same thing of what can we play together? What are we doing? TikTok: A Tale for Two. I forget if either of us owned it at the time, but it's only $6, so it was kind of an easy grab for us. And it's a co-op puzzle game, but it does co-op in a really like creative kind of cool way. I mean, functionally it's the same, but like you don't have to join the other person's game, which I think is unique. You just boot it up and you say, are you player one or you player two? And it just says, hey, make sure one of you is one and one of you is two. And as long as you can rock with that, which also means you can play on like anything. So it's like you can have like one person on the PC, one person on an iPad, or presumably a phone. I didn't check if it's on phone or just iPad, but it's on a lot of different places. So it's a puzzle game in that sense of having like each of you sees different things. Sometimes you see the same thing, like to a degree, like you go to the same buildings. Like it's kind of it's very like kind of lo-fi presentation of just kind of entering these little like screens of spaces and clicking and navigating to see what can you find out in this room and then describing like what you're seeing to the other person. So like a small example might be oh, we're both at the house. Let's go to the house together. Okay, we're in the house. I see, and I'm making this up. This is an actual example. I see 5 clocks. They're all set to like 6 o'clock. Oh, I have a letter. It says when the clock strikes 12, the secrets will tell. Oh, let me turn the clock then on mine. Whatever, right? It's those kinds of puzzles. It's pretty simple. I'm a puzzle dumb. Isaiah's a puzzle smart. Together, we both enjoyed the game, and we got stuck twice. There are guides for this game too, which is kind of rare for an indie game. Shout out to App Rapper, whoever, where I got my freaking answer for it. And it's funny because we got stuck on essentially identical puzzles. Like they were both the same kind of puzzle. It was like, I don't want to give it away, but it's like it'd be like if it was like a time thing. It's like, oh, we didn't recognize that it's a time thing. It was like one of those type situations. But yeah, I thought it was really enjoyable. It's pretty short. I think we did this. This was also a 1 session thing, 2 hours, maybe less if you're a little quicker on some things. And the thing I really like about it, where I do think this could be a mark for the word of the day, which is like competent. I think it's a step above that because while it never gets too complex, it's not operating, as coolly or engagingly as like Operation Tango or other titles like this. What's kind of nice about this is they scale some of the puzzles like across like the levels, which I think is kind of cool. So again, I don't want to give away any of the solutions, but it'll like teach you to do one thing and it's like, okay, well now that you know how to like enter this building, what if I like kind of flip that on its head a little bit? And you're like, oh, well now I have to do this differently. So I think they play on the puzzles that came before in a way that's pretty fun. And there's a little story that goes along with it. I don't think it's like the most mind-blowing story in the world, but admittedly, like I kind of enjoyed where it went and like the stuff that it presented. So I definitely think this is, while it's not the best of these games, I think it is a must play if you like cooperative puzzle games. Like it's quick, it's chill. Again, I don't think you'll be blown away, but I would be surprised if you didn't have a good time.
There you
So
go.
that's why I landed on that one. Um,
Nice.
yeah, and then what is left? We have Tomb of the Bloodletter. This is a game that was sitting in my Steam, and then Jeff over on MinMax was like, "I'm really liking this game," and I'm like, "Oh, time to move this game that's been sitting in my Steam library." Tomb of the Bloodletter is a rogue dungeon crawler word game. Screenshot wise, it presents as a typing game. It's not a typing game. You don't even need a keyboard to play it. You can just do it with the mouse. You can do it on your Steam Deck, which I just want to shout out for one, people that don't like typing games, and two, people that want to know if they can play it on Steam Deck. Essentially, how it functions is you are facing enemies in a dungeon, and you have magical spells, and these magical spells present as stickers that adhere to different keys on the keyboard, and they might be things like do 1 damage, or it might be heal, or it might be like debuff the enemy if you haven't damaged them this turn, something like that. And what you're doing is you're spelling different words, and you're trying to some degree use the magic letters, because that's how you like can do damage and execute things in the game. So what's really fun about this is my personal taste in word games is one that doesn't like lean hyper heavily on vocabulary and also doesn't lean hyper heavily on placement. Like I don't like Scrabble. It's just
Okay.
not my kind of game. I don't
Mhm.
like the idea
Mm.
of like I guess I'm a dreamer in that sense. I don't like the idea of like assigning point values to letters. It's like, oh, Q is so worth so much because no one can think of anything besides quilt. It's like, I don't know. I don't really like that. I don't enjoy that. And this doesn't have that. So I vibe with it from that perspective. But what's cool is that like you basically are presented, like I think my colleague Jeff nailed it when he described them as word puzzles you're kind of given, because the puzzle is the battle context. So like for instance, I ran into a scenario where every time I did damage, I also took a point of damage. So then I was screwed because I was only able to really do like 1 damage at a time. I didn't kind of buff my stuff enough. But what's cool is like if you repeat letters, the spell that's being cast is also repeated. So if you're doing if B does
Mhm.
1 point of damage, and then, you spell bubble, okay, that's 3 points of damage.
Mhm.
Like, so and there's also other elements of, like, the placement of the letter in the word, because there's, like, a spell that's you do 2 points of damage if it's in the back half of the word, but if it's in the front half of the word, you take 2 points of damage. So there's all these, like, kind
Mhm.
of cool, interesting, and novel things thrown in the mix that challenge you about like the kind of letters you're using more so than the type of words you're pulling, which sounds like the same difference, but like because it has that like differentiation of the problem solving element, it ends up feeling like really special and strange and cool. I'm hoping that I can get really good at this and at least beat it, because I want to be able to be like, I did it. I'm good with words, because that's
Yeah.
kind of my whole job.
Uh-huh.
However, I don't know if that will be the case, because it is quite challenging. But yeah, they do a bunch of like fun creative stuff with it. Even like how you progress through like the dungeon, instead of using a map like Slay the Spire does, you're presented with another keyboard that has like different of those like magic stickers, and you're told to spell a word that's like 3 letters. And though that's like the rooms that you're gonna go in, but it's also the buffs you kind of get. So it's like, oh, do you want to heal all the way? And the healing's on the R, maybe you want to spell run. But wait, are you full health? Well, then you don't want to enter that first and get that first. You might want to save that for the end. So then you're like, okay, can I spell a 3 letter word that ends in R, but that uses some of the other letters I want to use? And like this stuff is really fun for me. And
Mm.
if it's fun for you, you're going to have a good time. And if it wasn't fun for you, you probably zoned out like 2 minutes ago into me explaining the game, which is fair and fine. There's a lot of different kinds of games. But yeah, I think it's a really fun, unique thing. And it kind of has a little bit of Crit Master energy to it because it's
Oh,
a dungeon
yeah.
crawler.
Yes, let's
Love it.
go.
So,
Go check
if
that
you
out,
like that
everybody.
game, does that do anything for you? Anyway, yeah, so it's cool. I'm going to keep playing it.
I love it. I want to end on something that I'm going to have more coverage on the website. But just very quickly, Moomin Troll, Winter's Warmth. I got to play a little
Yay.
bit of it. Oh my god. Have you
They're cranking out these Moomin games, by the
Moomin
way.
be Moomin.
Mhm.
Moomin boomin. I love it. I loved the first game, and
Mhm.
I'm like, I don't know how I'm gonna feel about the second one. I jumped in, I'm like, I don't know how they've done it, but it's even more enchanting. Uh, more
It's
about
the
that.
winter setting. It's
Oh
so
my
good.
gosh, on the website. I love the new protagonist. Just an
Mhm.
absolute delight. Go play it because the demo is up. Uh,
Mm.
at least for Summer Game Fest. I don't know if it's up right now, but it's going
Steam
to
Steam
Next
be.
Next
Fest.
Fest.
Well, whatever I said. Whatever. See you next fest. Go check it out.
Just
Uh
like, I don't care about this game. No, I'm just kidding, Jeff.
no,
I'm
this
sure
is a
you
great
might
game.
care.
Absolutely love it. I'm excited to play the whole thing. But that's the end of this week's council, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We're on Apple and Whoa. We're on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. The Indie Council has its own socials. Go check us out on Blue Sky at theindiecouncil.com. But this session is closed. Go play some indies.